Welcome to the Movie Business Podcast, picking up where Movie Business Book left off. I'm Jason Squire, hosting a wide range of industry talent and executives to answer fundamental questions about the business today. Here we go. And today we're turning to the secrets of invoking the completion guarantee with Fred MILSTEIN, CEO of Media Guarantors, a CAC Group Company with over 30 years of independent film production, completion guarantee, and financing experience. Fred was the prior global head of production at Miramax and also held senior-level positions at Aon and ProSight, focusing on film. Career highlights include Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, directed by Sidney Lumet, The IMAGINARIUM of Dr. Parnassus, directed by Terry Gilliam, Silent Night from director John Woo, and ROOFMAN from director Derek Cianfrance. Welcome, Fred.
My pleasure, and thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Movie Business Podcast. So, what are the secrets of invoking the completion guarantee?
Well, when you say invoking, you mean have the bond company step in? The answer is don't do anything wrong and do a good job of producing your movie. Because our job is not to take over pictures. Our job is to work as a partner with the production, with the producer and the director to make sure that the director's vision and the producer's imagination and ambition is able to be realized for the budget they have and within the schedule that they've planned.
Now, this is an opportunity to just fill in as an introduction to the concept of the completion guarantee. If you could define it, and how does it work?
I view the completion guarantee as kind of the linchpin of an independent production. So we sit in the middle between the financiers, the distributor, and the production. And our job is to make sure that what's presented in terms of budget and schedule and script are all achievable and that the plan that everybody has come up with can work, so that the financiers who are putting up the money to make the movie and expect to get their money back out of distribution proceeds, et cetera, that they're protected in the sense that there needs to be there at the end of the day, a completed film in order for them to be able to then exploit it and get their money back. The producer and director want to make sure that, in most cases, that the plan that they've come up with is solid. So we're a second set of eyes, if you will, to make sure that what they've put together, again, is an achievable and realistic plan. And the distributor just wants to make sure that what they've contracted, the film they're expecting to get based on a screenplay that they've all read and love, is what they in fact get at the end of the day. So our job is to kind of be a neutral third party to make sure that everybody's expectations are fulfilled within the limitations of what, everybody has come up with. The amount of money, the amount of time, and the product adheres to what the expectations are of the actual screenplay. In a nutshell, that's what we do. We're in kind of the center of action from the very, very beginning of putting a deal together where all of these parties are negotiating with each other in terms of financing, distribution, and production until when we're off risk, when the film is delivered and accepted for delivery.
Well, this is certainly an elegant device that the industry came up with decades ago in order to secure the financier's sense of value in independent movies. It really did solve a lot of problems. And let me ask, as the representative of the guarantor, you are on the set, and what percentage of the budget goes to you guys?
Well, let me answer the second part first. Too small a percentage.
Oh, dear.
We are backed by, as most guarantors, we're backed by an insurance companies. There are only a handful of insurers that actually work in this kind of independent entertainment sector. So you often see the same insurers' names popping up. And part of what we do with the fee that we do receive from the production is have to pay the insurers. And all of the insurers have minimum premiums. And like most insurance, it's all gone up over the years. When I first started in the completion bond business, you would get a bond for 4 or 5% with a 50% no claims bonus. If the film came in on time and within budget and there were no overages, the producers got 50% of the premium or the fee that they paid back. That's changed over the years. So our bond fees now are 2% or less. And that's put a lot of pressure on the bond companies themselves. And there's always clamoring from the insurers for more premium, as you can imagine. But that's kind of the economics of our business are rather simple. We get paid a fee. Part of it obviously goes to cover our overhead and our activities, and a big chunk of it goes, in fact, to buy the insurance that secures, that is the security everybody is betting on underlying the completion guarantee contract.
And you're on the set during production?
Sometimes. Every company, and there are basically 3 of us now, every company has their own method. I find and found when I was head of production, sometimes having the bond company on set was really helpful. It kept everybody on their toes. And sometimes I found it to be a distraction. So what we do specifically is we go to the tech scout, we go on the recce, we go to the production meeting right before production to make sure everybody knows what they're doing, and we get a pretty good sense of how well organized the production is before we sign the bond. But we don't go to the set maybe one time during the production. We'll go and have a cost report meeting with accountants. We'll meet with department heads. But typically, we're not on set. Now, we're happy to go on set if we're asked to do so by the producer. And sometimes the producer needs a bad cop to be there. He and the director have to maintain their relationship with the talent. Sometimes it's talent, sometimes it's the director. Producer needs to maintain that good relationship. So they need a bad cop, a guy with a black hat, to step in on set and say, no, you can't do that, and here's why. And often we get blamed for that. Oh, the bond company won't let us do that. No, you can't do it. We checked with the bond company, they won't agree. But that's part of our role. Part of our role is in some way shadow producing the movie. We do show up when requested. Sometimes we go and just make sure that what we're being told is actually what's happening.
Well, this is very helpful. I gather then that the goal really is to have the least amount of work on each project, meaning they are running smoothly and according to schedule.
Once they start. But our work, and I think our fee, is really earned, and if you want to use an insurance analogy, during the underwriting phase. We did a bit of a study here. We spent about 100 hours, in excess of 100 hours, before we signed the bond, split between legal, finance, and physical production, really reviewing line by line the budget, the schedule, going through all the union agreements, going through all the cast agreements, location agreements, everything. I mean, our job is to really understand the movie and to make sure all the pieces dovetail together. So we spend a lot of time before production begins, and then hopefully with a meeting of the minds with production and the financiers to make sure everything can work. And yes, you're right. We hope every production, we've done our job and the people on the ground have done theirs, and that they're able to control and keep things on track, both in terms of budget and schedule, and that they're shooting the script and getting the work they want. But, things happen and nothing ever goes smoothly. We require every budget to have a contingency. So in addition to the direct cost of the picture, the actual cash that's needed to make the movie, we require that every producer, financier budget have a contingency. And that contingency can run anywhere from roughly 6% to maybe 10% of the direct cost of the picture. And that's essentially the deductible, if you will. Producers need our permission to spend it. It's not there to enhance the movie, to go beyond what the elements in the budget and schedule were meant to be. Although sometimes, if things are going well, they come to us and we'll of course allow it. But it's really there to handle the things that always end up happening on every single movie. Things change. Things don't go as well as everybody had expected. Things end up costing more than everybody thought they were going to cost, including ourselves. And things end up taking longer than everybody, expected them to take. So the contingency absorbs all of those factors. And when we look at a budget, we look at a budget and a contingency to make sure that together, both of those elements are going to be enough to allow the film to be completed and delivered.
Very good. Now, you had a pivotal real-world role in the documentary Lost in La Mancha. It's a really good movie. People should watch it.
It won the National Standard Award for Best Comedy the year it premiered in London.
Well, but what's interesting about it, from the moviegoer's point of view, is that Terry Gilliam allowed the cameras to cover a real-world financial experience on The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, starring Johnny Depp, where the completion bond was invoked, and ultimately the project was abandoned, even though the extremely talented director Terry Gilliam started over 17 years later and released the movie in 2018. So you were the executive on the scene. You were calm. You were unflappable. What was that like?
A very unique experience, I have to say, and taught us a lot of lessons. And Terry and I became, obviously bonded, no pun intended, through that experience, but rather unique. There haven't been a lot of films in the history of the independent business that have been abandoned.
Right.
Ultimately, we came out of it somewhat unscathed because the proximate cause of the abandonment, of the loss, was really Jean Rochefort, was the actor, who had, I believe, 2 herniated discs in his back. And if you're playing Don Quixote and can't sit on the horse, that's a problem. Ultimately, it was the cast insurance that ended up bearing the brunt of the abandonment cost on that film, because again, the loss was directly related to the lead actor not being able to continue working. And the film was properly insured. I mean, lesson learned, we always now make sure and study the insurance, the production insurance on each and every film that we do to make sure there's adequate coverage, because those risks that should be covered under traditional film production insurance package need to be properly covered. We don't, as a bond company, provide primary cast insurance. So ultimately, the cost of the abandonment, which was not insignificant, it was probably around 19 million euros, was covered by the production insurance package. I ended up having to contribute literally a few €100,000. The one thing you can't cover under production insurance is the actual premium you've paid the production insurance company. You can't insure your own premium. That was the one thing that fell to the bond company to pay. In fact, I was thrilled to pay it, 200 and some thousand euros as opposed to 19 million. We did come out well in that. There is an ironic corollary to this. Terry and I lived through this experience, and as I said, we became friends through this very, very emotional and very difficult experience with this film collapsing. I want to tell you one more thing about Terry. He came back to me some years later and said, look, I know the experience we had on Don Quixote. I know how difficult it was for the bond company, but I have a new picture. And there's no 70-year-old French actors in it. I have a young lead actor, and his name is Heath Ledger. Will you bond the movie? I agreed. We bonded Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
Right.
And halfway through the movie, having shot half of it in the UK, the other half was going to be shot in Canada, Heath Ledger dies. I think I'm the only bond company who's ever been involved with 2 pictures on which almost the same thing happened to the same director.
Wow.
It was pretty wild. And Terry and I are still friends, so.
Good. These are wonderful lessons. Are there any other lessons aside from the ones that you have described that you want to cover? And a related question about advice for someone wanting to enter the field.
Well, understanding production, really learning how to read, understanding the ins and outs of finance, physical production, and more than anything, how to deal with people, how to work with people. Those are really important things.
Right.
Because being in the bond business isn't really about counting trucks and lights and all of that. It's knowing what buttons to push. It's knowing how to get people to do their best work and how to be honest about what the limitations are and what the expectations are. Really, the essence of what we do is work with people. I mean, we look at cost reports, we look at trial balances, we look at production reports on a daily basis. Productions are supposed to report to us that way. And yes, those are important. They give us guideposts and they kind of show us the direction of the movie. But our job is to stay 2 weeks ahead, to make sure that we see where this is going, where the train is going, and if it's still on the tracks, and if it looks like it's going to head off the tracks. And A, it's experience, and B, it's just knowing how to be honest with people and hope they're being honest with you in terms of providing guidance and support.
Yes, this part of the experience that you're describing also has to do with intuition. It's an intangible and, of course, great diplomacy. Let's turn to your prognosis for the business, as well as how AI might enter into it. Where do you think this part of the business is heading?
We've all seen it in the last several years, certainly since COVID. There have been fewer and fewer films produced. So the pond that we work in is getting smaller and smaller. We have to, as a bond company, and we don't want to be viewed as vendors. We want to be viewed as partners. We have to start looking for other ways to support productions. Given the information we have, given the experience we have, find other things, other elements that we can provide to producers, financiers, et cetera, and filmmakers, certainly, to help get more movies made and get them made properly. I mean, use our skill set in different ways, not just be viewed as a one-product vendor. Maybe provide just advisory services. We're finding more and more private equity coming into the business. They don't necessarily want to buy a completion bond and spend the money because they think they can underwrite the risks well. If there's an overage or additional cost, they'd be willing to cover that. But they don't have the skill at the underwriting, the monitoring, the supervision. We can provide that without the indemnity. So we can kind of slice and dice the bond to really fit the risk profile of whoever the client is. So, maybe provide production services to a production. We're seeing a lot of independent film companies who used to have their own in-house production department no longer having the revenue to be able to sustain a full-time department. Well, I've got folks sitting here who are really experienced at all of those elements, from physical production to post to delivery. Basically, you could rent our services and we could provide those support services. So we're your in-house production department on a contract basis. So we're looking at other ways to be able to utilize a very talented group of people here. My team is great in supporting the business. With respect to AI, though, I think there's no question, and we're already beginning to utilize it, will help make us more efficient. I'm certainly not going to rely on AI to tell me, do the underwriting end of it and tell me, oh, yeah, this film's great, you should do it. It's always going to take experience and intuition, as you say, which AI doesn't have. But what it can do is analyze vast amounts of data, which we do have, to tell us, hey, this is a trend we've seen in 7 other of your movies. The transpo department, if they're at this point in production, seems to have a recurring tendency to go off track. They're spending too much in this area. It can raise red flags for us in analyzing production reports and cost reports, et cetera, to kind of get us quickly to the bottom line. Instead of having someone have to go through line and line and line of everything, it can analyze very quickly mounds of data, compare it to historicals, and at least give us an ability to get to a conclusion faster. But it's always going to take people.
Well, you have really provided a wonderful journey through the completion guarantee process, and thank you so much. Fred, it's been wonderful to host you on the Movie Business Podcast. Fred Milstein, thank you again, sir.
My pleasure, and best to everybody. This is a great business, and I hope we continue.